Thomas fan knows that the single most important part when telling the stories is the narrator. As a narrator for one of the biggest shows for kids, you have to have that certain spark. Meaning, you have to have enthusiasm while telling the stories, you must have a great variety of character voices. In a way, make the stories their own so that all the fans will be fully engaged. And most of the narrators did hit their mark, while others fell a little short. But this just bears the question, who really is the best narrator for Thomas? Who was tip of the top and pretty much at their very best when it came to telling these stories? Well, in this video, I'm going to share my personal rankings for each individual narrator of the show. This is only going to consist of those starting at Season 1 all the way to Season 24. Nothing outside of those are going to count. And one last thing, just bearing in mind, don't forget these are all going to be based on my personal opinion. Nothing here is completely factual. So let's start with the weakest narrator of the series, Pierce Brosnan. Look, I have preached for years how much I love The Great Discovery. But just because it's my favorite out of the Model Thomas movies, that doesn't mean I don't have my fair share of gripes too. I respect Pierce a lot, but I really don't know if he was the right choice for this movie. I mean, when he says something along the line of,
telling bedtime stories and then actually performing it in a studio are two different techniques.
The point of a Thomas movie is to keep the audience entertained, not put them to sleep. Why are you telling it like it's a bedtime story? I can totally understand why people say that he sounds very dull throughout a majority of the film. I do think it's necessary in some parts where he takes a little step back a bit, and I will give him credit for at least delivering when the intensity was needed.
Suddenly, he crashed through a thick wall of bushes. He flew across a ravine and hit the ground with a bump. Help! Thomas cried.
I also really like some of the voices he provides. One that immediately comes to mind is his Duncan voice.
Mr. Percival says that because you mainline engines don't know the tracks in the hills.
It's not exactly Carlin or Angela standards, but it's pretty good. However, a majority of these pretty much sound very similar, so sometimes it's a little hard to tell who he's doing. Again, I will totally give him credit for at least trying. He just ended up as a flop. Next up on the list, we have at a tie, Joseph May and John Hasler. Yeah, I can't believe I'm actually ranking Thomas the Tank Engine as a freaking narrator. When Big World Big Adventures finally took off, both actors would voice Thomas as the narrator of the episodes. I cannot figure out why this change was needed. If you were gonna have a narrator, then why couldn't you just stick with Mark? Wouldn't that have been a little easier? No? Also, I think the Big World episodes kind of speak for themselves, to the point where what's going on, you kind of don't need a narrator. It's like adding in that extra bit of dialogue that nobody asked for.
I was so excited to be part of the carnival that I cha-cha-cha'd all the way to the goods yard. I dropped off my cars, and I set off back to the carnival. Everyone helped clean up the mess, which made it a lot easier.
No shit!
I will give both this. They at least have energy while voicing Thomas, and you can tell that both are having fun with it. I know tons of fans don't give a damn, however, about Joseph May's Thomas, because, oh, it doesn't sound like Thomas. You know what, call me as simple all you want, but I don't think May's Thomas is that bad. Big World Big Adventures is where you definitely see a dip in quality with his voice acting, so no, I'm not blind to that. But way before that, I think he's great. That's not to say that I don't like Hasler, because I love his Thomas voice too. In some cases, there are times where I like his more than I do May's. Singing-wise is a perfect example, as Hasler pretty much nails every song in Big World, whereas May is decent in some, and definitely his worst-sounding one is Sometimes You Make a Friend. But again, way before any of that, wherever he sings, I thought he was good. At the end of the day, both are very fine actors, but the narrator change I don't think was necessary. Both definitely have the amount of energy that is needed, and while on paper, it sounds cool to have Thomas tell the stories. But in the long run, nobody asked for this. Next on the list, and I know my head's gonna get cut off for this one, it's Ringo Starr. I know, the British fans are practically screaming at the computers or throwing their phones across the room. But before any of you nostalgia nerds attack me, be quiet for 2 seconds and hear me out, please. I'm in no way, shape, or form saying Ringo is a bad narrator. In fact, he's far from it. However, it's very hard to rank him at a higher level compared to some of the other narrators that I personally feel are a bit better than him in some cases. You gotta remember, the UK was pretty much exposed to everything he did for seasons 1 and 2, but here in the US, we only got 5 releases with his narrations, and I only grew up with 2 of them. Those who may have had the other tapes as kids, good on ya, but I had very little exposure to him when a majority of my tapes consisted of either Carlin or Baldwin. I will give him major credit, however, for his enthusiasm while telling the stories, especially in season 2. This is where I feel like he was at his peak. And in some cases, he did sound a little bit better than George. An episode that clearly sticks out is A Close Shave.
Hurrah, 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 laugh the cause. We've broken away, we've broken away. Chase him, bump him, throw him off the rails, they yelled.
But just because I think he's good at telling the stories, this isn't the reason why he's this low on my list. My main issue is his vocal range. It's a little hard to tell what character he's voicing as they all sound very similar. Unless he's voicing a character with a very distinctive voice. And only a few come to mind, like Diesel, Donald and Douglas, Harold. The rest of the time, it's just his voice. And with that said, in some episodes, when voicing a character, sometimes they tend to sound a little bored, and in turn, makes the stories boring to sit through. And a lot of this tends to happen, I've noticed, in season 1. Then again, it is a slow as fuck season, so... Again, he doesn't sound like that all the time. I wouldn't personally go as far as to say he's out of this world amazing, but I can give him a huge amount of credit for at least giving his all for the first 2 seasons. He was good. I just wanted to see a little more oomph with the character voices. Just making the top 5, we have Mark Morahan. Now, I don't really have too much to say about him as he was strictly the narrator only for seasons 17 to 21 and the later CGI movies. But where he stands, I don't think he's that bad. I actually like the pure subtleness when he's telling the stories. In an odd way, I feel very relaxed listening to him. You can just tell he's having fun with it, as he at least has a lot of energy put into where it is needed, especially in the movies.
Thomas couldn't chase after them.
Oh no!
His fire had gone out and there wasn't enough steam. Sailor John and Skiff were getting away.
Also, did anyone else notice how scary similar he sounds like Angelus? I remember when season 17 first came out, and I was totally convinced it was him.
Gordon was very proud. He didn't want to be pushed. But if Gordon didn't let Paxton push him, he wouldn't be going anywhere at all.
Anyway, because he's good in this aspect, one tiny downside is that he doesn't have that range of character voices. And no, Dexter does not count because it's only the one voice. After he stepped down as narrator, I wish they would have done a little more to expand his voices, because I feel like he had so much potential to voice act some of the new characters in Big World. And I feel like it was a total missed opportunity when some of the other actors were pretty much hogging everything. I'll even add this. When it comes to breaking down all the CGI narrators, yes, this includes Brandon and Angelus, along with Hasler and May, Morahan is definitely my favorite out of the bunch. I've never seen him do anything else outside of Thomas, but from what I can tell, he had a blast. Not sure if I really have anything else to say other than he is great. Just a total missed opportunity on Mattel's part to not let him voice some of the other new characters. Next up in the 4th spot, we have Alec Baldwin. I am very nostalgic when it comes to Baldwin's narrations. Obviously, my first exposure to him was through Magic Railroad, and I gotta say, as a narrator, he isn't half bad here. Goofy, sure, but I like that different approach to the Mr. Conductor character. When that carries into Season 5, Baldwin absolutely kills it. He has a great amount of energy.
The dam's breaking up. We must find high ground, shouted Toby's driver. Your only chance is to cross the bridge, called Percy. It doesn't look safe to me, wailed Toby. It's our only chance, said his driver. If the dam breaks, we'll be done for. We'll just have to make a run for it, Percy, called his driver. There's going to be an avalanche, wailed Percy. And he was right. It's the ghost, he wailed. What ghost, his driver asked. It's the old warrior. He's come to hunt me down.
His vocal range really extends, even to some of the more questionable but funny-sounding ones.
Fancy not securing your freight cars on a hill. They'll come back to spook you and your special funnel.
Well, I'm always going backwards, Mr. Oliver. I have forward-thinking views. I could be a leader, if you know what I mean.
My sister has rung to tell me she can't come to stay with me. I was so looking forward to her visit.
That's my line of cars. It's not. It's mine. Yours is over there. It's mine. It's not. It's mine. It's not. Because I'm a big blue engine and I know everything. I shall complain whenever I want. You're just a small red engine with ideas above your station.
We engines run this island.
Oh, no! We're in the scrap yards.
However, I cannot turn away a blind eye when a majority of fans complain that he isn't good in Season 6. As nostalgic as I am for that season as well, even I have to agree that he isn't exactly good here. It should really say something when I think he's at least tolerable on the Salty Secret VHS. If you remember in my review, I did state that Baldwin I feel like is at his semi-best here, as he did do a few distinct voices, including Salty.
We heaved until the old freighter finally caught the tide. It's good to be useful.
Elizabeth.
You're just an old steam truck. That would be vintage steam truck. And I haven't much time to get to your coupling rods.
Hell, even Alicia Body from Chocolate Crunch.
I can't possibly travel in coaches riddled with mice.
But after that, it's a clear downward spiral, and it really shows. Most fans speculate that this may be due to the fact he divorced Kim Basinger and was depressed, or he was just looking for the almighty dollar. I don't believe any of that, because if that were the case, then why would he have come back at all? I've even heard some people say that he was told to tone it down a bit after receiving backlash that the Season 5 episodes scared a lot of children. Weirdly enough, that makes the most sense to me as, well, I was one of the kids that was scared by a majority of Season 5. Maybe this would explain why he dropped the voices? Or maybe he was told not to do impressions? I don't know. Also, if you really look at Season 6 compared to Season 5, you can definitely see the dip in quality, so maybe that also might explain some things? Bottom line, these are nothing but speculation. These aren't hard facts. We may never even know the real reason for the sucky stories or Baldwin not being at his best. However you want to look at it, I don't think he's all bad. He's at least given the energy and enthusiasm that is needed, given the fact that it's Season 5, I mean, really. And even if some of the voices aren't that good, there's no denying he at least had a range. Baldwin started out really good and may have had something going for him, but in the end, he came up just a little short. And making it into the 3rd spot is Michael Angelis. I can totally understand where fans are coming from when most say Angelis is one of the greats, and I fully agree. Need I remind you that this is coming from a person who only had one tape of his, so you can just imagine my reaction when I first heard him off of New Friends for Thomas.
Good morning, Thomas. I look my best, and do you know why?
Why?
Because a Duke and Duchess are visiting. Sir Topham Hatt will be choosing me as their special engine.
Who the fuck are you?
With that said, in the beginning, I actually wasn't the biggest fan of him, because I really didn't like the slow pacing of how he told some of the stories. But as the years have passed, I've really grown to love his narrations, and some of his voices too. Now, because he is the longest running narrator of the show, does this qualify him to have the top spot? Well, not exactly, and here's why. He may have stuck around through the thick of it all, but that doesn't necessarily mean anything. I would describe his career, like so many others have said, a roller coaster. It actually baffles me how he sounds really good in seasons 3 to 6, still okay but slowly begins to dip in season 7, comes back midway in Jack and the Pack, sounds absolutely bored as hell throughout Hit, and then instantly picks the energy back up in the Nitrogen era. What happened? I'm really not sure if this was on his part or maybe that it was yet again another voice directing thing, but the issue again that I have is the same I've got for Ringo. The voice range. Most of his voices just sound the same to me. There's only a very small handful of characters that I can know right off the bat who he's voicing. Ones like James, Emily, Diesel, Donald and Douglas, Percy, Salty, Sir Topham Hatt. This is just a small list of ones I can think of. But like Ringo, I wish Angelus would have done just the teensiest bit more in terms of voices. Now before any of you start attacking me, this is not me trash talking him. I still love him as much as the next person. Even up until his untimely death, I still greatly respect and fully appreciate what he has done for UK and American fans. In some ways, I wish we had a little more exposure to him in the US dub. Maybe he would have been a spot or two higher on the list. But because of his roller coaster narrations and sometimes hard to tell voices, that's why I have him placed in the third spot. And again, I know there are fans who would argue that Angelus deserves the top spot, and I totally understand why. But I'm not gonna turn away from noticeable flaws that managed to get a slap on the wrist by some fans. And that leads us into the second spot, and that is Michael Brandon. Yep, I can already just feel the hate. You may even be screaming, "What makes Brandon better than Angelus?" Well, I'm gonna tell ya. As a narrator, he's not terrible. The energy is definitely there. With some of the Hit era's hidden gems, and I have to admit, even some of the bad ones, the enthusiasm never slows down. But this leads people to say that he's too overly enthusiastic. Well, I'm sorry, but isn't enthusiasm needed for telling the stories? In fact, in a lot of episodes, particularly in Season 8, I think he's better than Angelus. But the main reason why people don't like him is the typical answer you'd expect. Brandon's voices. A lot of people have complained that Brandon's voices are so bad that it makes the Hit era unbearable to watch. Now, while he did have a few questionable ones...
If a big engine like me is frightened of thunder, the little sheep must be very scared. How am I going to make the Children's Day really special? I'm not a really useful engine anymore. So Topham Hatt will have to send me for scrap. But I liked my old roof with holes.
He also had quite a lot of standouts.
Keep away!
You can't get past. I can only go back as far as the next station. Then Donald is in the way.
Fearless Freddy is back. I'm the fastest engine in the world. Look at me go!
I am a big engine, and big engines get big jobs.
Is doing 2 jobs in one day too hard for you?
So for anyone to turn away and say that he had no good voices at all, that's not true. And if I may also throw this info in here, he at least was consistent throughout the series. No, not 100% of the time, as, say, Season 11 is clear evidence of this, but this issue also applies to ones like Baldwin or Angelus as well. Brandon is not perfect by any means, but I don't believe he should be looked drastically down upon. He at least had what was needed for a narrator of Thomas, and I think with a tad improvement, he would have probably been the best. However, there is one person who I believe is just above him and the rest of the gang, and that is George Carlin. I'll bet none of you are remotely surprised that I would have Carlin in the #1 spot. Now, the reason behind this has nothing to do with the fact that he's my personal favorite, or because he's an American narrator and I just so happen to be an American. No. This is genuinely why I feel he deserves this spot. I firmly believe that George Carlin is the voice of Thomas the Tank Engine. What I mean by that is, I don't think they could have picked a better choice to tell the stories. Carlin has this overwhelming charm to him that I believe was just perfect for the narrator spot. If you actually think about what makes a good Thomas narrator, he pretty much hit every nail on the head. He had loads of energy.
Beep, beep! He whistled in horror, for rushing straight toward him was Gordon with the express. Oh! groaned Gordon. Get out of my way! Are you ready, Henry? Said the driver. Sneeze hard when I tell you. Now, he said. Achoo!
The amount of charisma given, and this is mainly seen as his role for Mr. Conductor in Shining Time Station. The devotion he has is admirable.
Go away, don't you fear. I like it, I do. I'd like it right here. Now that I'm out, I'm staying this way. They won't trick me again. I'm here to stay. The trouble I'll cause, trouble galore. And then when I'm done, I'll make even more. The first thing I'll do is empty this place. Then, Mr. Conductor, we meet face to face.
Even adding in his own amount of humor to the stories to make them his own.
Hello, Percy. It's nice to be back. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Please, sir. You look nervous, Percy. What's the matter? Please, sir. They've made me a desperation, sir. To speak to you, sir. I don't like it, sir.
Come on, come on. Why aren't you cars where you should be?
But the one true best thing about him was his character voice range. He had such a wide variety of voices, and this really helped to bring the characters more to life. Each one was given their own personality by the distinction of the voice, where you could immediately tell who he was voicing.
It's really tiring to be such a large and splendid engine. One does have to keep up appearances, so.
So who's going to tell him, I wonder? Two goody-goody tattletales like you, I suppose?
You impertinent scallywags. Whatever are you engines coming to?
You're a muckle nuisance. It's to leave you behind I be wanting. I hear tell about an engine and some tar wagons.
You swank around with your steamroller wheels, pretending you're as good as me.
Coughs and sneezels spread diseasels. You had a cough in your smoke box yesterday. It's your fault the diseasel came. It isn't. It is.
I'm a plain, blunt engine. I speak as I find. Tunnels should be tunnels and not rabbit holes. This railway is no good at all.
I also wanted to say that I do know that a lot of fans tend to whine about Carlin's Toad voice because, well, it just sounds so off-putting to them. Come on, is it really that terrible? I'll even let George himself give my thoughts on it.
Fuck you. I think it's hilarious. How do you like that?
Anyways, his consistency to keep doing these voices and not losing any of that much-needed energy for 4 seasons was amazing. Now, in some cases, did Ringo or Angelus do a teeny bit better at some line delivery in some stories? Sure, but I also think Carlin was better in some cases as well. Hell, I think there were times where he was pretty much on par with the others.
Pee, pee, pip, 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 pee. Let me in, let me in. Pee, pee, pip, 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 pee. Let me in, let me in.
Just because the other two might have had their pivotal moments, why should that take away anything from Carlin? Because believe me, it doesn't. Now, I can totally understand why some people would think Angelus is the best narrator. As I said before, I have great respect for him, and I always will. But a lot of fans tend to base their answer on biased-sounding opinions. Like, oh, it's because I grew up with him, or because he was on the show the longest. That to me does not apply as a true answer. Even if Carlin didn't appear on the show nearly as long as Angelus, that to me doesn't make a difference. At the very least, Carlin did have everything in his power to make the show fun and entertaining. Not saying Angelus or Ringo didn't try, but you get what I mean. I can tell that Carlin has definitely gained a lot of respect from fans as the years have gone by, and I honestly hope that continues to grow for many, many years to come. He has and will forever be my voice of Thomas the Tank Engine.